are dining alone. Joining me now are Angela Rye and Nia Malika Henderson. Thank you both for coming on the show tonight. Angela,
it's great to be here.
Angela, let me start with you. Is the GOP leadership the real problem here?
Absolutely. Reverend, now when you look at what has happened from last night till even this morning, you saw the GOP leave dinner with President Obama, and some of them went straight to the Senate floor, and the tone even changed then. Then this morning, you have Senator McCain and Senator Graham almost berating Rand Paul for his actions on the floor related to the filibuster the night before.
Right.
So I think that you're seeing a real shift. You see Speaker Boehner saying that he is hopeful and he's looking forward to this, but this is a guy that was, struggling with the term compromise. So I don't think that it's on the president at all. All he's doing is simply shifting his strategy to constantly galvanize the American public and their votes to a strategy that includes galvanizing the votes of those that participate on the House and Senate floors.
Now, Nia Malika, when Nancy Pelosi, the minority leader in the House, when she was asked this morning whether the president was to blame for the failure to reach a grand bargain, let me show you her response.
He has tried so hard to listen, to accommodate, to be respectful of their points of view. No, I do not think this is why we didn't reach a grand bargain. I think we didn't reach a grand bargain because the Speaker of the House walked away from an agreement that he and the president had arrived at, probably because he couldn't sell it to his own caucus. And I don't care what anybody else says about that.
So clearly, Ms. Pelosi, Congresswoman Pelosi, shares the view I opened with, is that Boehner and McConnell may be part of the problem and the failure here. Given that, are you optimistic that some of this reaching out by the president can break through and go around the leadership? Or are you still saying that we've got to deal with the realities of gridlock in Washington?
Well, I think both in some ways. I was out there last night stalking those senators after they came out of that 2-hour meeting, and they were praising the president. They were optimistic that there would be more meetings like this going forward. They saw it as an icebreaker, a way to talk to the president in a sort of semi-social way and to exchange ideas. Mostly they talked about fiscal issues, but they did touch on immigration and gun control. And I think this does represent a real strategy shift on the part of the White House. They had gone to this outside strategy trying to galvanize people around the sequestration.
Yeah.
That didn't really work. The sequestration went forward, and so now he is doing something that he hasn't done very well in his presidency.
But will it work, Nia Malika? I think it's clear it's a new strategy, but will it work?
I think it will work because there is, and you hear so much about this common sense caucus, right? And if you look at the people who were at that meeting yesterday, those 12 folks, 2 of them are not up for re-election, and they pointedly talked about that and the hard choices that they will face when it comes to perhaps raising taxes. And some of those people at the table were part of the grand bargain on the Senate side in 2011, in July of 2011, and agreed to a bargain that was grander than what was scuttled on the House side. So I think it is something of a new day, not only in terms of the tone from Republicans and how they're talking about the president, but also in terms of the president's strategy.
Now, Angela, you've worked the Hill, and you've been involved in some of the behind the scenes as well as out front stuff. Part of I think that has to be factored in, I read with some interest, E.J. Dionne wrote in the Washington Post. He's saying that even lawmakers are tired of this dysfunction, and that's why we may get a deal. Let me read a quote from his article. He says, the strongest reason for hope arises from one of the most basic human responses, exhaustion. And I think E.J. may have hit something, because from some of my conversations with members of Congress and the Senate, they're frankly getting tired of a lot of this back and forth.
Sure. Reverend, now you're seeing folks not only expressing their exhaustion, but some of them retiring. They're saying, you know, partisan gridlock hasn't been this bad for years. And as a result, they're saying, you know what, if we're not going to be able to reach any agreement to make sure that we're covering the American people and looking out for their best interests, we're not going to be. So actually the president's naming, I know Nia Malika just mentioned it, but the Common Sense Caucus, there is just no better strategy than that. Common sense polls very well with the American people. I hope Organizing for Action takes hold of that and asks people, are they committed to being a part of the Common Sense Caucus, whether they vote on the floor or not. I think it's a brilliant strategy, and it's a way to galvanize people towards forward movement. And it's a really, really good, strong point that the president made with the Common Sense Caucus.
Well, Nia Malika, if you let's use Paul Ryan, for example. Let's use him as a measure. He's saying now that savings from the Affordable Care Act, he says this is how he wants to balance the budget through President Obama's policies. Savings in war spending, increased revenue from new tax hikes on the wealthy. This is Paul Ryan. Now, if you look at what he's saying here, and you compare it to what he was saying when he was running on the Romney ticket, then he would claim President Obama was raiding Medicare to pay for health care. He claimed war savings were phantom savings. He said raising taxes would hurt economic growth. So he's clearly compromising now based on what he was saying less than a year ago when he was the vice presidential candidate on the Romney ticket. If that's a measure, we may be moving towards something here.
You know, I think that's right, but I do think that Paul Ryan's budget that he's going to release next week is pretty similar to the budget that you saw lots of Republicans run away from. Mitt Romney even ran away from much of the plans there, which would voucherize Medicare, really cut anti-poverty programs and Medicaid, and he's been having trouble selling it to his own caucus. I reached out to a Republican. I said, isn't this more of what we've already seen? Is it deja vu all over again and again and again? And he said it's the closest thing to a big idea that Republicans have right now, and it wouldn't make sense necessarily for them to back down. So that's why you see, I think, Paul Ryan largely doubling down on what we've already seen. But I don't know that Paul Ryan is necessarily a part of what could happen in the House. If you've seen over these last couple of weeks, they've been able to break that Hastert rule, get a minority of Republicans to vote with a block of Democrats and really push some important measures through. So I don't know. I think that the president respects Ryan's intellect. He's got a big brain, but I'm not necessarily sure that he's going to be part of these grand bargains that we might see going forward.
All right, we will keep watching this, of course. Angela Ryan, Nia Malika Henderson, thank you both for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Ahead, a big day in the fight for gun safety, but we'll talk live to an activist fighting for change. And more of Bill O'Reilly's war on the facts. You've got to see this one. Plus, Hillary may run or may not. Who knows? But news tonight that is sure to make her smile. You're watching Politics Nation. Stay with us.